The one with the ring is a brilliant episode of Friends, and it's been a while since I've been this excited about an episode of Friends and the next episode. And I cannot wait to rewatch the next one. The one with the ring is the 23rd episode of the 6th season. It's directed by Gary Halvorson, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode and share some thoughts. There are a few parts to the narrative, so as I usually do with Friends discussions, I will talk about each of the parts in turn. And we have a part focusing on Chandler and Phoebe, Ross and Joey, and Rachel and Paul. And I have to say, I really like Paul. As much as I'm indifferent to Elizabeth, I think Paul is great. And Rachel wants Paul to open up a little bit more. He doesn't really talk about himself. He doesn't talk about his emotions. So she encourages him to talk about his childhood. And he tells a story about Chicken Boy. And he becomes distraught, sobbing, clinging to Rachel. And it's a little bit of a case of be careful what you wish for, because after that, it just doesn't stop. One of my favourite moments with Paul in this episode is when he's talking to Chandler, and he tells Chandler his father never hugged him, so he wants to hug Chandler. And finally, Chandler relents and lets Paul hug him. And it's really sweet. It's a nice moment. And it kind of gives us a glimpse of what it could have been like if Paul became one of the guys. But also, that would be a bit weird. To be honest, I think the whole Ross dating Emily and Rachel dating Emily's father is a bit weird in itself. Not that I don't think Rachel should date Paul, but at the same time, it is a little bit of a bizarre situation. But nevertheless, really funny moment. But the best part is when Joey comes in and Paul basically pounces on him to give him a hug. And it was really sweet. And then he writes down his emotions, and it seems like he's over it. He's able to put a lid on it again. I don't necessarily think he should, but that's what Rachel wants, so he does. And then they have sex, and he cries after sex. And honestly, it was a fun part of the episode. Probably my favourite moments with Paul. I really liked this part of the episode, or the narrative with Paul. And I rather enjoyed it. Then we go to Ross and Joey. And Phoebe says that Chandler is mad at Ross, and this is because Ross and Joey came into the apartment and Phoebe and Chandler left really quickly. And Ross was like, that's really strange, what's going on? And Phoebe said, Chandler's mad at you. And it's because Ross and Joey had tickets to a game when Chandler wasn't there. So they decide to buy him some tickets to another game. And he blows them off. He's not interested. Obviously, he's preoccupied with something else, which we'll talk about in a moment. So Ross and Joey decide they're going to be mad at Chandler, and they ignore him for the rest of the episode. But we'll come back to that at the end. And then we have Chandler. And this basically picks up from the previous episode. The end of the previous episode, we learned that Chandler is going to propose to Monica. And because Phoebe accidentally walked in on Chandler looking at ring brochures, that's how she found out that he was going to propose. And she goes down to the jewellery store and tries to help him pick out a ring. Nothing's really speaking to him. Phoebe suggests an engagement bracelet or a tiara or a musket. And then Chandler finds the ring. And it's a little bit more expensive, but he says he can pay $8,000 for it, which I think is a phenomenal amount of money. I know engagement rings go for a lot more, but I couldn't imagine wearing an $8,000 anything. I would be so scared. But he's happy and willing to pay it. He wants the best for Monica. But for whatever reason, he decided to go down to the jewellery store without his credit card. He lent it to Joey. So he asks Phoebe to guard the ring while he goes to get the card. And this is the bit that I think is maybe hard to believe, but if somebody wants to correct me, that's fine. But I feel like if Chandler said, I'm just going to get my credit card, I will be straight back, will you keep the ring until the end of the day? I think they would have done that. I find that hard to believe that they were willing to just have the ring on display still for somebody else to come along and purchase it. So I kind of find that hard to believe, but I don't buy expensive rings. Maybe their policy is you buy it now or it stays on display. I don't know. Either way, Phoebe is trying to guard the ring, but she's also trying on the bracelet and the tiara and everything, and then somebody buys the ring. It was sold from a different salesperson. It wasn't the person Chandler was speaking with, which makes that part of it more believable. Somebody different had sold the ring. and she tries to run after this person, and the little jail falls down immediately, and she's stuck in it. And it's a very dramatic scene, and also heartbreaking because somebody's just left with Monica's ring. And Phoebe had actually overheard the person who bought the ring, which also makes me question, well, if she knew he was buying the ring, why didn't she stop him? Maybe she didn't know it was that ring. But also, if somebody is in that spot where the ring you're meant to be guarding is, surely you'd pay more attention. If you're paying attention enough to hear where they're going to be proposing, you're paying attention to enough to know that they're possibly buying that ring. So again, don't necessarily believe that was well thought out. But anyway, they know where he's proposing, so they go down to the restaurant and they ask to speak with him, and they do this pretending that somebody from his office is phoning, and they just say the name John, and apparently there's a John in the office. It worked well for them, and they explain the situation. The ring was meant for Chandler's fiancée, Phoebe, who is dying, and after a little bit of hesitation, the guy decided to swap rings. Chandler's ring was more expensive, so it's not like he was trading down or anything, and not that money means it's more attractive, but certainly he wasn't losing money, which I think is an important point to make. And then Chandler says, "You're about to marry a wonderful man to the woman who's not been proposed to yet." So that was a bit of a blunder, but he has the ring, and he goes and tells Ross and Joey, and they finally decide to stop freezing him out, and they talk with him, and everybody's really happy for him. And then Rachel comes in, and she's really happy, and it's a lovely scene. The ending is a bit sour, as Ross and Joey find out Phoebe helped pick out the engagement ring, and they turn their backs on Chandler again. But it's very exciting, and I can't wait for the next episode. The next episode is a little bit bittersweet because of Matthew Perry, and the episode after that, I'll talk more about that when we get there, but I'm really looking forward to watching it again. Personal highlights from this would be Phoebe in the little jail. It's a very dramatic moment, and Paul opening up and sobbing. I just thought the performance there was brilliant, and Chandler having the ring in his possession and telling everybody about it, and it's really beautiful. It's a lovely episode. Really thoroughly enjoyed it. Can't wait to watch the next one. The one with the ring is an absolute delight.